What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to look at a statement from an employee, kind of a higher-up employee at Ubisoft that had something to say about owning games. Really ticked me off. Obviously, I made a whole third channel about retrospectives, about looking back at games. Podcast Now, Back to the Past, in case you're interested. And I really am a big believer, and I've tried to put my money where my mouth is over the last year and a half, 2 years of game preservation, owning games. Now, yes, Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, there's really good deals. And when a game does come out on these things, I do tend to go with it. Persona 3 Reload, in just a few weeks, I'm getting it on Game Pass. I try not to be too hypocritical because ultimately I do buy a lot of games physically. And as the years go, I will continue to do like the PS5 and Series S and X generation. I do want to have as many games in my hand as possible for the simple fact that that's where you own them. And this is what we talked about time and time again on this channel, on my retrospective channel, owning your games, having it in your hand. And Ubisoft here really says the quiet part out loud. Now, this is not, like, I want to be careful how I'm saying it. It's not like a Ubisoft statement. It's not like every single employee that works there believes this. But this comes from their director of subscription. So I guess they are going to have this opinion, but I really hate what they said. And they say about as directly as possible, hey, like, I understand owning things, but you have to stop wanting to own things. So let's read out what they said, and then I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant. One of the things we saw is that gamers are used to, a little bit like DVDs, having and owning their games. That's the consumer shift that needs to happen. They got comfortable not owning their CD collection or DVD collection. That's a transformation that's been a bit slower to happen in games as gamers grow comfortable in that aspect. If you resume your game at another time, your progress file is still there. That's not been deleted. You don't lose what you've built in the game or your engagement with the game. So it's about feeling comfortable with not owning your game. I still have 2 boxes of DVDs. I definitely understand the gamer's perspective with that. But as people embrace that model, they will see that these games will exist, the service will continue, and you'll be able to access them when you feel like. That's reassuring. The issue here, and here's actually my biggest problem with this entire thing, that's the defense. The defense of this is, well, you pick up and play, and you can resume somewhere else because it's all digital. Because it's all digital, it is easier and it's more accessible to maneuver. And only in one particular way does that actually apply. Only in accessibility. Yeah, that is the case. You can go to a friend's house and not have to lug your disc or your case. It's not even that heavy. I remember going to friends' houses for sleepovers, like when I was in my early teens, even mid-teens. I remember bringing games, like 5. Now, we wouldn't play half of them. I'd bring like 5 or 6 games, and then if we decided to play them, that's the first time I've remembered that since I was that age. That's how long it's been. So, in short, it's not really a big deal in that way. But look, I kind of understand what they're saying, the fact of the accessibility. The thing is, though, like I said, it's only in regards to one aspect. Every other aspect, they literally say you need to get used to not owning games. And they're the director of subscriptions. Again, I understand somebody with this job title is probably going to be pretty heavy in digital and, in a way, I mean, that's what you're doing. You're renting indefinitely games when it's subscription services, and when it's just digital in general, you're renting, you're not really owning. I get why you would think like that, but it's just a terrible statement. Get used to not owning your own games. Now, this is like a thing in life as well, right? You'll own nothing and you'll like it. It's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. What happens when the internet's down? Well, all this accessibility stuff isn't very great, and your pick up and play kind of model doesn't really work if you don't have internet. What about, and we've talked about it literally dozens of times, what about games that you buy, you own, and then the multiplayer section of them, or the entire game is multiplayer, and they shut the game down a year and a half, 2 years in? The game is literally gone. And we've talked about some examples. The Crew, which is happening actually in March, right? And actually, that is Ubisoft. The Crew is literally Ubisoft. The first Crew game, you need the multiplayer. You need online in order for it to work. You can buy that. And then guess what? When they shut down the servers, the game is dead. If you own it physically, which I do, that's why I'm looking over there. If you own it digitally, well, it's just gone. It's completely gone. And We've talked about this with Battlefield Bad Company 1 and 2, the multiplayer element. A game like Knockout City is a online dodgeball game. That game was shut down, I think, a year and a half in, something around that. So you buy it, you own it in a sense, I suppose, and then it's just gone for good a year and a half in. It's not a good future. It's not. And like I said, like, I get it. I am maybe a hypocrite in the way that I do support Game Pass and PS Plus. It's an ease. It's an ease of use, and there are a lot of games on there, and being able to just press it and not have to worry about having the disc, and the library is so big. I get it, but I feel like you can kind of have both, and that's really, like I said in the beginning of the video, it's really what I try to do. I have hundreds of games to my left over there in the corner of my living room. I have hundreds of games from PS1, Xbox, PS2, all the way up till now. And I feel like it's a good blend, and I want to obviously continue to grow the collection, and I will as time goes on. You can't take those games away from me. And it's not really like a selfish thing. It's ownership. You bought something, therefore you own it. But the thing is, you don't. Not in this world. And this person actually throws movies, shows, music, actually throws them under the bus too. It's not anything we don't know, but I've said this constantly. Music. You don't own any of them. The Spotifys and all these different playlist kind of platforms of the world. You don't own any. The new Taylor Swift music, you don't own that unless you got the vinyl. You don't own it, right? And that's, they're right. For that kind of stuff, people just accepted it. Streaming music became immediately, actually Taylor Swift was really one of the only ones that kind of fought against it for the longest time, it felt like, in terms of the big mainstream, right? Not to get into like a music history, but people did generally just accept it. Music just did that. Movies, it's really happening quite fast with movies and television. You don't see the box, the huge box sets of the TV shows. You don't see that anymore like you used to. People just kind of accepted all of that is not. Now that I just don't care enough about to really, like, I don't need to have a collection of the last, like, 60, because I'm not into it as much. I don't need the last 60 years of television, physically, but I'm not into that. I do want to have as many years as possible of gaming at my disposal in my hand. But the premise is the same. Those shows are not yours if you bought them on Apple TV or, whatever these things are. You don't own any of that. You're renting, like I said, you're renting an indefinite license to watch it. That's what you're doing. For subscription services, you are renting an indefinite amount of time that you're able to play this game on PlayStation Plus, on Game Pass, any of these. They took away, like, say, PlayStation Plus, right? Had the Yakuza games, and now they don't. You had them for a set period of time. You didn't know how long you had them for. You're paying for these games. You're paying for, the subscription, and then you play them, and then they're just gone. Now, again, it's a subscription service that is literally almost like you're renting these games. You really don't own them, but it's the same general. It all falls under the same umbrella. It's not a good future. Thanks, Ubisoft, I guess, for saying that part out loud. We already knew that, but it hurt. Like, it genuinely makes me more mad. Like, I've talked about this probably 10 to 15 times in the last year, okay? To see somebody just outright say, you got to get used to it, guys. You got to get used to not owning things. Everybody else did. Why can't you? That upsets me greatly because we know the pitfalls of not actually owning games physically. We know the problem there. And to see it be pushed directly and from one of the big guys, right? Like, this is Ubisoft. Again, it's not everybody at Ubisoft maybe, but this is a mentality that Ubisoft has, like, for sure. It's definitely but it's not just Ubisoft. It's Ubisoft, it's Sony, it's Microsoft. I mean, all the big ones are doing this. And it's not a great future, at least how I look at it from that perspective. So, Ubisoft, honestly, I've been talking a lot about you in terms of even a redemption. I think Ubisoft, gaming-wise, could be in for a little turnaround. They've got, I think, a lot of potential. Not all of them, but going forward, I think there's more hits than misses that they're going to have. Even the last little while, they've also had more hits than misses. Gaming-wise, development-wise, I think they're doing okay, and they're getting back on track to, like, over here. Well, I mean, Splinter Cell is great, but, Ezio, the Assassin's Creed, the golden era of Ubisoft. But let me tell you, if you keep pulling this stuff and Skull and Bones and all that stuff, if you keep pulling this act, it's not, how are you going to have a redemption story? How are you supposed to do it? So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.